Welcome to It's UATL, your unscripted weekly dose of Black culture straight from the heart of Atlanta. I'm Nedra Roan, and I'm here with Deasia Page and Brooke Howard. Hey, you guys.
Hey, girl.
Hey. So for our main segment, Naja and Brooke interview Chief Marketing Officer of the Atlanta Hawks, Melissa Proctor. But first, it's homecoming season. And for HBCUs and universities in Atlanta, this season is a very big deal. From the school-sanctioned events like concerts, parades, and tailgating to the informal parties thrown on the side, it's a time for students and alumni to go all out. So first, let's talk a little bit about you all's experiences with homecoming.
I attended the University of Kansas, so that's a big hint there about what my homecoming experience was. I mean,
Was there homecoming?
No, I was gonna say,
Like,
they did have homecoming. I feel like if you weren't a part of a fraternity or a Black fraternity or sorority, then you probably didn't have much of an experience. Because I think during the homecoming weekend, but they always had a stomp show or what is it?
Show.
I said
She said stomp.
They can stomp too. Franklin. Oh my God,
that's the movie.
They had the annual step show during homecoming weekend. That was sort of like the big thing. I feel like at PWIs you probably may have a stronger connection to homecoming if you were in the Greek life, if you're Black. But yeah, that's just me. At least at my school, that's what I felt.
At my PWI, we left campus and drove to Howard.
Oh. What school did you go to?
We did that too.
I went to UPenn, and I remember freshman year, we decided, you know what, we're going to go to real homecoming. So we rented a car, and it was like 5 of us in some tiny little car, and we drove to DC. We finally got to campus, and as soon as we got there, our mouths dropped open because we had never seen so many Black people on a college campus in our lives. And after that, it was on. It was a wild weekend. It was a lot of fun.
I went to a PWI also. I went to the University of Virginia and actually enjoyed our homecomings. Like we had like our little not winning football team, and I was on the media team for football. So a lot of times I would end up like sitting in on the games and taking notes and interviewing players and stuff. But like you go to like the white frat parties and enjoy the time.
The white frat party.
I mean, it's like, it's a very quintessential college experience.
Oh.
But we also have a Black alumni weekend too. Oh, is that triggering to you? Look with the frat parties.
Deaja's gone way back into the recesses of her mind.
So she's thinking of like the kegs and all the things.
Because I remember sidebar, like, so homecoming is around like my birthday and also like Halloween season. So there was a particular Halloween when we went to like this white party, and I was just like, I do not fit in here. But I also did not dress up. So during this Halloween party, we had went to some white party my friend wanted to go to. I didn't want to go, but it was Halloween. They all dressed up, but I didn't dress up. And I was like, well, let me just make fun out of it because I really don't want to be here. Let me tell all the white people that I'm like actually am dressed up as a 90s singer. And I told them I was Deasia, like the singer from the 90s. Mm-hmm.
That's
Some
genius.
of them kind of believed me. Some of them bought it, and I was like, hey.
Deasia, I love that. That's a good story.
Sorry, I totally got sidetracked. But when you said white frat parties, I'm like, oh my goodness.
No, that's a good one. I'm the singer, Deasia.
Yes.
Just rock with it.
She's a 90s singer.
Right.
You know? How do you all think that HBCU homecomings are different from PWI homecomings?
To me, it doesn't seem like it's specific for the school or for the school community. It's more so, hey, Black people, we're having a family reunion, and we're just so happening to have it at Howard or A&T or wherever. And it's like all the Black people congregate, all the celebrities randomly come. I mean, it's a great time. It's a really good time, but it just doesn't seem as collegiate based to me. I don't want to sound negative. I don't mean it in that way. It's just more.
You mean like it attracts more of the community,
right,
as opposed to
right, rather than students getting together, linking up with alumni, networking, stuff like that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think the reach is different. Like people who have graduated from HBCUs really want to go back and be part of that, whereas I don't think you see the same enthusiasm, let's say, at PWI. So it's a very different feeling, I think. So today we are talking about the Atlanta Hawks, and it's perfect timing because today marks the first day of the NBA regular season. The Hawks face off against the Raptors tonight at 7:30 at State Farm Arena, and hopefully y'all got some tickets.
No, but I will be watching it from the comfort of my home on my couch as I usually do. But it's a great season for me in my household. It's only one person in my household. That's me. So I do I love NBA. So I'll be watching.
That's what's happening today. But 10 years ago, there was some drama brewing with the Hawks. Brooke, tell us a little bit more about what was going on in 2015.
So apparently this owner, he sent an email to whoever on the Hawks team about why the team wasn't doing so well and why they weren't selling tickets.
And the owner was Bruce Levinson.
And he was lambasting the Hawks because too many of the cheerleaders were Black, too many of the bartenders were Black, so nobody was going to buy drinks. He said people had to yell too loud to get T-shirts. The music, there was too much hip hop. Basically, the experience was too blackety black.
And there were no fathers and sons.
And there were no fathers and sons. There were not enough fathers and sons at the game. Don't take their kids. There weren't enough affluent Black people going to see the games. You know, he went on a rant about it being too much of a Black experience, I guess.
Mm-hmm. But then it all fell apart.
Yeah, it all fell apart.
And that resulted in the sale of the team. Right?
Yes, after his very, very, very lengthy email.
Right.
Very lengthy.
Which I think it's important to point out that the email came out 2 years after it had actually been sent.
Right.
So there was a 2-year time period in which he was still an owner of this team that he very clearly had some feelings about.
Yes.
Yeah. So after all the drama and change in ownership, to make sure their games actually reflect Atlanta's Black culture and community, the team went through some pretty big rebranding. One of the major forces behind that transformation is Melissa Proctor, the Hawks' chief marketing officer. Naja and Brooke got to sit down with Melissa for a live recording at the Hawks Stadium in front of a crowd of UATL supporters. They also had Lauren Williams, our AJC Hawks reporter, co-hosting with them.
Yes. Actually, it was really dope. We had an event at the arena, and Melissa Proctor, outside of her working for the Hawks, she's like a mentor into fulfilling whatever career desires you have. She was talking about having a work-life harmony. That's what she said, not a work-life balance. But yeah, she was just saying how important it is to have the community involved when it comes to a community-based organization like the Hawks. Like you want people to come and see the game, so they have to feel as if their voices are heard.
As I mentioned, this is a live recording, so the audio sometimes gets a little bit noisy, but let's get into it.
So first, Melissa, we just want to start off hearing about your journey as a Black woman in a top executive role in the NBA. What has your journey looked like? Start from the beginning.
How much time you got? I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So I'll be super real. Like the idea that I'm here as chief marketing officer, I've been with the Atlanta Hawks for 11 seasons now. But honestly, I am born and raised in Miami, Florida, and I was an artist. Drawing and painting is what I've done all of my life. And I got an opportunity to go to some schools in middle school and high school to focus on art, and none of them had athletics. And so when I was around 15, I had a cousin who loved watching basketball on TV. My parents are not American. My father's from Jamaica. My mother's from Belize. And so they knew nothing of American sports. And so when I, would hang out with my cousin and she's like, let's watch this Heat game. And I'd be like, ooh, that's so cool. And I would watch it like a soap opera. Like it was like story for me.
Soap opera? I don't think I've heard that
so
before.
Compelling.
Soap opera and
basketball storylines, especially in the 90s, like those were epic.
All about soap operas.
100%.
Yeah.
So this is like the Jordan era and Pippen, like it was a very different world. And so I was so enamored by it. And one day I was talking to my mom and I told her I wanted to get a job. She was like, well, Mel, I'll let you get a job as long as it's in whatever you want to do for the rest of your life. And at 15, I was like, okay, I don't know how many of y'all knew what you were going to do at 15. But I told her I wanted to become the first female coach in the NBA because I would watch these games that I loved and this storyline, but I never saw women because there were no women reporters at the time on the sidelines, or women weren't allowed in locker rooms. There were no women referees. And so I was like, I just want to be head coach. Mind you, I've never played basketball, like ever. And she said, okay, Mel, go get a job in the NBA. And that's how I started my career in sports. I wrote letters to the Miami Heat. I begged, I called, I harassed. That was persistence. And then ultimately the equipment manager called and tried to discourage me. Said it was grunge work. You here early, you stay late, you fold towels. It doesn't pay, which I don't know if that's legal or not, but it didn't. And ultimately I was like, okay, I didn't care because my mom didn't give me any other opportunity. And so I kept calling. And one day he was like, come in for a preseason game. I had never been to an arena before. I had born in the hood in Miami. Like, it was a very completely different world for me. And when I went in, it was like the lights and everything. It felt like TV came to life. And so very quickly, I learned how to hustle. And the guys on the court all saw me, and they're like, oh, we never had a girl before, let's show you the ropes. And so some of them kind of showed me. Some of the players were really motivational, and that was the beginning of my career in sports.
So also, too, what happened with your art career in the midst of you venturing over into the sports arena?
It's interesting. So I was in high school, I was focused on art, and I ended up getting an art scholarship for college. And so I was selling artwork to some of the players on the team. I had a manager that helped me manage my art. I was doing gallery exhibitions across Florida with my art. And that art actually started morphing into like more graphic design. So I worked for the Miami Herald newspaper in Miami as a graphic designer.
Wait a minute, a little journalist?
In high school. I do what y'all do in the visual sense. And then I was just always around the creative side. And so I didn't necessarily know what direction it was going to go in, but it was my senior year of college. And I was like, I'm going to get a job in the NBA. And so I applied for a management training program at the NBA's headquarters in Secaucus, New Jersey. And at the same time, just in case, I applied to stay in grad school at Wake because, just in case you just stay in school. Yeah. It's a good thing. They both turned me down. The NBA told me I was too creative at the time. Now I learned that NBA really kind of stands for nothing but attorneys in a lot of ways, and not in a bad way. That's what their business is based on. At the time, what they were looking for was not what I had, and that was ultimately what brought me to Atlanta. And I truly am a firm believer. I'm a woman of faith. Everything happens for a reason. And I didn't know what I was going to do, and a woman in the communications department said, hey, I saw this flyers for an internship at this place called Turner. I didn't know what Turner was. I knew the networks, but I didn't know what Turner was. And all it said was, send us your talent in a project. And I was so intrigued by that as a creative. I was like, ooh, what's that? Like, it could be anything. So I ended up making a TV guide. That is so old school. I've just dated myself. A TV guide about myself. I had my artwork in it. I had a press release about me getting this job. I had a resume. I had different examples of me in ads for Turner Network. So Turner Classic Movies, I was Cleopatra, and I took out Elizabeth Taylor's face and put my face in it. And then I was a ball girl for the Heat. So it was NBA on TNT, and it was me as a ball girl. And I had done all this. It was a Cartoon Network. I made myself a Powerpuff Girl with some locks holding a briefcase.
And we never saw a Powerpuff Girl with that kind of hair now.
Well, you know what I'm saying?
Never.
So I showed them what the future could look like. And ultimately, TNT Marketing said, you sold yourself so well to us, we think you would do an amazing job of selling our content to consumers. That's how I got my first job in marketing in Atlanta. So I called up my old boss from the Heat, said, hey, do you know anyone at the Hawks? And he was like, oh, I know a guy. And I ended up being a ball girl on the court for the Hawks. My first year living in Atlanta, the art started kind of taking a back seat to all the other things that I had going on.
And I'm guessing, how does your art background maybe help with some of the design things with the Hawks jersey, or being able to tap into creatives in Atlanta to help boost the Hawks' connection to the city?
Yeah, it's a great question. I really think that our internal creative team, we actually built out an agency internally called Hawk Studios that does all of our creative work. So everything you see in-game, even our jersey designs when we're not working with Nike, we have an internal team that designs it. So we do a great job, and I think they appreciate that I have an art background or creative background because I understand their world. People are like, let's make changes. I'm like, do you know how many revisions, how much time that takes in hours? Where others will just be like, oh, it's just changing that to that color. And I'm like, you have to change 5,000 assets. Like, it's not as easy. So I think the context is helpful. So most people who are in this position, or across all teams, will look at other sports teams for inspiration. So it's like, hey, what does the NFL do? What does an MLB team do? I love looking at things that have nothing to do with our sport. So it may be what's happening at Burning Man, what's happening in Fashion Week in Paris, what's going on in the latest artist that dropped an album in a new and unique way. I love looking at party flyers, and now it's whether it's posts on TikTok or wherever, and then drawing inspiration from that, because our target is really reaching the next generation of Atlantans. In order to do that, we have to think next gen. We can't use the old playbook to try to, really engage new audiences.
That makes me think of the MLK jerseys. It felt like a merging of the history of Atlanta, but we brought it to the present. Talk about how that all came together.
No, that is such a great story, because actually I just got promoted to Chief Marketing Officer. And the first thing that happened was Nike and the NBA called and said, hey, we're ready for you to design a City Edition uniform 3 years from now. And I was like, what? Y'all work 3 years out? But based on production and the way that, Nike works, everything, we're working on things now that are 3 years out. And so when I sat down with them, it was like, look, whatever you're doing, it can't be trendy. can't be something that's hot today because it has to be relevant 3 years from now. It has to be true to your city. And I really just thought about what we do as an organization. And for so many years, every time we had an MLK Day game, it was always the best. Like we would get featured on ESPN. We'd have a gospel choir coming out to do player intros. We would do a lot to kind of elevate the history of Dr. King and explain things to people. And I was like, why do we only do that for one game every season? So I said, it would be really cool if we were able to, take that, but really use it throughout an entire season to really build on the work of Dr. King and the legacy. The irony is that when we came up with it, everyone loved it. It was blessed. It was done. And then it ended up launching in the summer of 2020. And we could have never imagined when we came up with that 3 years prior that the relevance of what we were doing would have so much impact right on the heels of George Floyd in the middle of COVID. And people were like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. It was really just around how important social justice was and still is to our organization and obviously to the city of Atlanta. And so it almost took on a life of its own outside of even what we had imagined. So much so that the Pope reached out after he saw it. The Pope's people, girl. The Pope's people reached out. And they were like, the Pope was inspired by Dr. King as one of, his inspirations. He loves what the NBA has done through this time in 2020. He would love to bless your uniform. Like what? I'm reading this text like, you got the Pope? Like who? You can't buy Pope media. Like the Pope doesn't just reach out to people. And so we were honored. UPS is one of our partners, and they worked with us to actually get a jersey that we created for the Pope to Vatican City. And then they sent us video and pictures, and I remember getting it, and I was like, this is so surreal. The Pope is taking it out, he's holding it up, he's blessing it. I think he signed it. And I'm always like, what did he write on it? Like, to Pope, from Pope? Like, I still don't know. But I truly believe that is one of the things that helped us, because that was the season we made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Yeah. And the players loved that uniform more than any other. It was a blessed uniform. Whenever they played in it, almost every time they won. So much so when we got into the playoffs, we were talking to the estate like we didn't even plan for playoffs. We just planned for the season. And so the players were like, we're wearing it. And I was like, that's phenomenal. And the best part of it to me was that a big piece of our campaign was we wanted to make sure we were able to give back to the city through it. So not just in education and what we did on game days, but 100% of the profit from that uniform that we sold in Arena went to women entrepreneurs in the city of Atlanta to further the work that and the legacy that Dr. King was doing at the time that he passed. And so we didn't want it to just stop there. We figured, if it's a men's basketball team, giving money to women entrepreneurs to create new jobs and continue economic empowerment within our city, which is big and a part of the DNA of our organization, that was really important.
Yes, clap it up for that.
We want to hear your take. Do you consider the Hawks to be the premier Atlanta team? Why or why not? Use your phone's voice recorder to send us a response on Instagram at @It'sUATL or email us at uatl@ajc.com. And don't forget to add your name, your age, and where you're from. It's time to take a break, but when we come back, Melissa talks about what makes an Atlanta team.
Truth is power. Knowledge is power. Information is power. And if you want to hold elected officials accountable, if you want to know how to make the most informed decisions, then you have to have facts. You have to have good information. And Politically Georgia provides all of that.
We bring you not just the biggest news, but also the analysis of why it matters to you.
I love to tell people to think globally, but focus locally.
Follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode of Politically Georgia.
Now, you're also talking about all of these cultural influences that are so intentional with the team, even the MLK uniforms. So what makes an Atlanta team an Atlanta team?
I now can say that I've lived in Atlanta longer than I lived in Miami, where I grew up, and Atlanta's adopted me. It's my second home. And I think culture is Atlanta's main export, and everyone knows that. So I think we have an opportunity and a requirement as Atlanta teams to really take the culture and all the amazing things of this city and put it on the map for the rest of the world, because it's what we have. And it's interesting when I talk to CMOs of other NBA teams, they're like, I wish I had what y'all have in Atlanta. We can just go and look out. And even for us, like those celebrities that are sitting courtside, they bought those tickets. Like they're here as fans. And it's great to see where others are like, can I fly some people in? And maybe they'll want to come to our city and stay for a game. And we wanted to make it as true to Atlanta. Even that being our brand mantra was incredibly important. What is true to Atlanta? What does that mean for us? And it means different things to different people, just like UATL, and we think that by doing that, we want to make sure that everyone feels like they're embraced, and this is an inclusive environment for all. But it's interesting now when I get to talk to retired players and people who have to travel to different cities, they're like, I can't wait to come to Atlanta. It's always a party. And I think every team has their own kind of culture and energy and brand in different ways. But for us, it's really around next generation Atlantans and being the team that's going to be relevant for that next gen.
I think what's also cool is in the in-game experience, you get people like Shamia as an in-arena host, and you have Big Tigger as the public announcer. Just what does it mean leaning into those voices to try to help bring out that sort of party culture that is very familiar with Atlanta?
I mean, it's everything. It's music. A couple of years ago, we had Mr. Hankey, who's a local producer. You know, he created a whole soundtrack for the game with original beats based on all the other stuff that he's done to really create. And he's, you know, born and raised, homegrown. And so using all of that, and it's, yes, our in-game entertainment is important, but it's also what we do game in and game out. And more importantly, what we do in the community outside of our game experience. I remember the very first day Tony Ressler, who's our majority owner, came into the organization. He said, we exist to be a civic asset before we're even a basketball team. And that was the strongest statement and line in the sand that he drew, because it then opened up the door for us to do a lot of the things that we do. And so I don't think that it's only what we do in game, but I really do believe it's all the things put together that helps really make us align with the city and that leans into our culture.
In your position, I'm sure as a woman, you've run into a number of different hurdles, maybe, possibly.
Possibly.
How did you navigate this journey in terms of this male-dominated industry?
Yeah, you know, the male-dominated part is interesting. It was always a difference of perspective. And so I'll say, as a woman, especially in a leadership role, we lead differently. We do things differently. And I think we have different superpowers. And so I see myself being a black woman in a male-dominated industry as my superpower. So when I walk in a room, no one can tell me about how to be black. No one can tell me about how to be a woman. Thankfully, in looking at Atlanta and our demographics and our city, we are incredibly multicultural. We're probably one of the most diverse fan bases, you know, in pro sports in the nation. And so I can look at something or have a perspective or an idea, and I'll say, you know, I don't think this is right for our fans. And they're like, well, why? And I can talk about that. And thankfully, I also have the respect of a lot of my peers and my teammates, where they would be like, you know what, Melissa, okay. You know, I get that. And that has to be earned and worked for over time. One of the things that I requested of my boss when I got this position was an executive coach. And he was like, why would you want an executive coach? And he's like, you know, for most men, if I tell them they're going to get a coach, they're going to think they're being fired. And here you are asking for a coach. And I said, well, I know that I have blind spots and I have gaps and I want to be better. And the way that I'm going to get better, I can't just hope. And for me, like, there's no ego. I'm like, look, if I don't know, I'm like, hey, help me build a set of brains around that. Like, how exactly do we get there? And so I do think by taking that initiative, and I learned a lot from that coach. I learned that I was a micromanager because I was so used to doing the work myself. So I had to learn as I grew in leadership that, you know, sometimes it's not about me, and it's about empowering my team to feel like they have a voice. And if something is wrong, we work together to correct it. But I'll say, you know, the NBA has evolved a lot. And so I see the change and the evolution. And so it makes it a lot less scary male-dominated. Obviously, there are men that are playing on the court. Very different thing. We have women in the front of us on the basketball side. You know, Tori Miller, who was on our G League team. And so it's so great to see. And then we're all like family at the same time and support one another. And so even within the Atlanta Hawks organization, we have a number of women in our leadership team, and we get together and we support one another. And I think that makes all the difference.
Can I just say I really appreciate your self-awareness and your humility. I feel like that really helps leaders to evolve as the years go along. You don't always see that. I'm being honest.
It's funny. So the other day, there was a young lady on the team, and she was like, I want to set up time with you. And I was just like, okay, cool. My door's always open. Like, anyone knows they can set up time if they want to come and talk to me. I'm very open. And she was like, I want to, but I was so scared. And I was like, why? She's like, you're Melissa Proctor. You're the CMO. You wrote a book. And I was like, yeah, and like, what's your point? And so when she came and set up time with me, she was in there talking and crying. You're like, this is so amazing. And I laughed, and I was just like, so how do you feel now? And she's like, I wish I did this sooner. And I was like, it used to upset me so much because people had a perception of what they thought an executive was based on what you said, but they didn't give me a chance to be me. So once they got an opportunity to hang out or talk to me, and they're like, man, you so cool. Oh, you so. I'm like, look, I tell everybody, this job cannot define who I am, because I know that I'm warming a seat. And then any day they could come in and say, Melissa, thank you so much. We appreciate your efforts. I got laid off from Turner when I was 8 months pregnant with my daughter. And it wasn't me personally. And so I've been through that experience. And I saw people who were like, my life is over. It's almost like a divorce for them. And I was like, I can't allow a job to take that much ownership of myself. And ultimately, I love to be able to hand the reins over to somebody else who's equally as awesome to be in this seat once I'm not anymore.
I'm curious about how the organization stays authentic, because the community can tell when you're being fake or when you're pandering to them. So how do you and the rest of your team kind of find that balance?
I mean, we check each other. And I know I check them too. So if we're doing something, I'm like, why are we saying this word in this spot? Like, don't nobody say that. Like, come on. It's like, the Hawks are in the house. Like, no, we're not in the house. Like, we're not doing that. And so I think by having people internally that look like me or have a different perspective helps a lot. And then I think other times it's really the dynamic of having a very diverse leadership team. A woman on my team is, been there a long time, born and raised in Atlanta. She'll be like, yo, Melissa, we got to do this. And she has perspective that I don't have. Like, I have 2002 on perspective, but she has 1980s on and be like, oh man, back in the day, this was it. I'm like, all right, cool. The one thing I'll say for my team is they were real creative. And sometimes we come up with stuff and I'm like, ooh, I don't know if that one's gonna fly.
I kind of want to hear one of them.
Yeah. I'll give you a great example. Please. So a couple years ago when the NBA came up with the in-season tournament, no one knew what it was. Famously, they had players being interviewed in post-game. You're like, I don't know what it is. They just want me to play in it. I'm doing it. And so she's like, it's true.
It's very true.
And so, my boss, our CEO, said, Melissa, we need to do something that really help educate fans on what this thing is and why they should care. And so we were like, okay. So he was like, we need to cut through the clutter. We need something super creative to break through so people can understand and want to learn more about this. And I gave the brief to the team. And they came back with OnlyFans.
Whoa.
And it was Harry the Hawk rolling around in the bed in an OnlyFans campaign.
I think I remember that.
Oh, yes.
I remember that.
And Harry said it was, the voiceover was like hot 5-on-5 action.
It was rough.
I remember that. We went there. And when they came back with the script, I was like, this is going to cut through some clutter if it doesn't do anything else. And they created the spot, and I was like, okay. And I went, to my CEO, and I was like, you wanted breakthrough? Boom. And he was like, I didn't know that breakthrough was like that. But I knew that for the team because they were so excited about it, because they knew it was so different. They knew it was super irreverent, slightly controversial.
Risque.
And they were like, as a team, would we ever be bold enough to put something like that out? And after talking to my boss, I said, I will kill my culture if we don't do this. We asked for it, they delivered on it. And so if we just walk away from it, that's not a great thing. And kudos to Steve. He went out and he spoke with our ownership. He spoke with the NBA. I think the day that it came out, he was sitting next to Adam Silver because our team was playing, I think, in Mexico or something. Yep. And literally he was like, hey guys, just FYI, it's coming out. And just so everyone knows. And so they saw it in advance. And so he kind of cleared the way so that it could happen. And it came out, and boy, did it. It was one of our top performing pieces of content ever on social. Some of our players commented and hated it, and we got on TMZ. I told you I got fired and rehired about 20 times that day. But it did exactly as intended. And so people were curious about what it was. We sent them to an IST website to learn more about in-season tournament, to buy tickets. And so it's things like that where giving your team, empowering your team to come up with it, but then delivering on it.
Now, you have done a number of different things, like that ad, clearly, and being involved in the community. So, but what other goals do you have with the Hawks? Like, what else are you interested in jumping into?
Well, I mean, as an organization, there's so much happening. And I think it's just the evolution of the world right now. People talk about, AI and what that means. And so for us, it's consistent innovation. How do we stay on top of technology? We have an amazing digital marketing team that's looking at what's next. So even this season, schedule release, every year it's a creativity exercise across all NBA teams. It's a little friendly competition on who can be the most creative with schedule release. And we decided we were going to do a 24-hour live stream in our building with the streamer on Twitch who reached out to us. And literally he slept in the building, rooms to go, helped us out, and built a whole bedroom out by the court. And he had people out playing 2 Chainz. I think they were in the locker room making beats and songs at like 2 a.m.
Nick was there too.
He came through. Yeah. And it was like they had this idea, and we had a whole video that we had planned that we were going to do. And this idea came up, and I was like, all right, pivot away from the video. Let's go. Even, leaning into Atlanta is a big reason of how we do it. So even great example, Outkast. This year they're getting inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is huge.
Well deserved. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so we were like, we can't be the most true to Atlanta team and not acknowledge that. And so we worked with Outkast and their team. And so we've created these amazing handmade robot dolls that we're doing a collectible set. And we're going to have a night where we're giving them out to fans this season. And honoring Outkast. Yeah. And honoring Outkast. And so, that's a cool one. So there's so many things, but what can we do that we've never done before, and how do we push boundaries?
You've mentioned so many Atlanta legends, especially in the hip-hop community. Outkast, you mentioned Roscoe Dash, 2 Chainz. Makes me think of the Killer Mike partnership. Is there a story behind that you can also share?
Yeah, it's great. When I first obviously started here, we were Phillips Arena then, and we were looking at how do we redo the building to make it what it is today. And one of the ideas, we had a brainstorm session, I believe it was architects and some people from the city, and they were like, what can we do to help connect this city to Atlanta? And someone was like, Killer Mike has some amazing barbershops around the city, swag shops. And we were like, it'd be really cool to partner with him. No one knew what that meant. Like, has there ever been an arena with a barbershop in it? And a barbershop that faces the bowl where you can actually get a haircut and watch the game at the same time? And they're like, that just sounds cool. And they reached out to Mike, who was great, and I got to help and work on that deal. And he's been a phenomenal partner. Now I think we're like being able to employ the barbers that work in the other parts of the city to come in on game days and them to be able to show what they offer and being connected. And so the number of people who've reached out and wanted to shoot content, because it's such a dynamic space, and we're like, hey, where do conversations happen? In the barbershop. And so we have one here live in the building. And so I think it's a tremendous opportunity, but not just because it's cool and different, but really how it connects us into the city.
Why is it important that the Atlanta Hawks reflect the city that it represents?
Many, many different reasons. I mean, I'll say when I first got here, it was a really interesting time because we had a different ownership group when I got here. And what had happened with that group, what happened with that ownership group and saying disparaging things in the community, like I think I was on week 2 when that happened. And the way that my current boss or CEO stepped up, and he probably just gotten here like a month or 2 before. It was new for everyone. We said, you know what? This is a lesson in what we need to never do again within this organization, and how are we going to just move forward? They had so much passion to make Atlanta better and our community better, and so I think all of that was aligned. But once we started, it's like, no, this is who we are. It's not what we're doing to check a box, and I think that's the difference, and that's the values alignment that I was talking about earlier.
How have you felt like the city has responded to the moves that you guys have made, especially after that, controversial email that happened?
I mean, it's been night and day.
Yeah.
Like, I remember being here, and there were like civil rights leaders like trying to get into our offices, and it was a terrible time. And so we have been in constant change mode since then. I think we've built a great leadership team, but it's like not that we've done it and we're moving on. It's like we're done it and we continue to do it. And so I think you gotta walk the walk and talk the talk. And so for us, that consistency to me has shown fans have come back. And the team, the one thing I always say about being a CMO of a team, I don't control wins and losses. So most people can control the product on the floor. I don't control what players we get. And so it's great when we have the excitement that we do around our team like we have this season. But regardless of that, we have fans that still ride for us because they believe in our brand. And that's important because that's what we have the power to change and to affect.
It sounds as if you're creating more than a sporting event or more than a game. You're building a community.
100%.
That's
100%.
That's really dope.
And we lean into that. And so even now, we talk about next gen. I think last month, we were like the number 1 team in the NBA on TikTok. And we were like, what? How is that possible? But so much of it is like, we're doing what we said we're going to do. Growing in Instagram. We launched a podcast last season with DC Young Fly, Hawks AF, which is Hawks and Friends. That was another thing the team came up with, and I was like, ooh, I like that name. I see what you did there. Okay. So it's, like I said, it's an ongoing thing, but it's just really important for us.
And one question that we like to ask every guest. Now, we know you have Miami roots, and we want you to shine in Miami, but we also want to know, why are you so ATL?
I came here as an intern and had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up, and Atlanta has been so good to me. And I believe that the opportunity that people see, and they see Atlanta and they see Black excellence, like, I feel like I am an example of people who have come here and didn't know anything and were embraced by the city and by Southern hospitality and could really just do what they can to help grow themselves, and then also give back. And I believe that Atlanta has poured into me, and I'm hyped to be able to pour it back out to everybody else.
Well, that's all we have time for. I'm sad. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me.
It's been a pleasure. Can we give a round of applause to Miss Melissa Proctor?
Thanks so much for listening to It's UATL.
UATL is a source for Black culture and community in Atlanta. It's powered by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and our supporters. If you're enjoying this podcast, join us as a UATL paid supporter at uatl.com.
And if you like the episode, please follow us and leave us a rating and a review. It really helps. See you next week.